Welcome back, my second grade friends. We are here with Magic Treehouse, Season of the Sandstorms, and I left us off with Jack and Annie riding the Ship of the Desert on a cold, starry night, which is one of their clues for Merlin, and the Ship of the Desert was simply a camel. But now bandits have caught up with them. So Chapter 5, the title is Bandits! Jack looked around wildly. Dark figures on horses were galloping across the sand toward them. They were yelling and shouting. "Oh no!" cried Jack. "What should we do?" "We will fight them off," said Mamoon. "You and Annie take this box and ride to the dunes." Mamoon pulled a flat wooden box out of one of his saddlebags. He thrust the box into Jack's hands. "Hurry! Ride as fast as you can. Protect it with your lives." Jack frantically tried to stuff the box into his shoulder bag, but Mamoon slapped the back of Jack's camel, and she bolted forward. The reins slipped from Jack's hands. He grabbed the saddle horn with one hand and clutched the wooden box to his chest with the other. He held on for his life as Beauty galloped across the dark desert. Annie's camel ran beside Jack's. Like two racehorses, Beauty and Cutie thundered across the sand toward the distant dunes. Rocking crazily from side to side, Jack clung to the box. "Slow down," he yelled. "Please!" It was no use. Beauty ran like the wind. She and her sister practically flew over the desert under the starry sky. Jack wanted the camels to stop, but at the same time, he wanted to get far away from the bandits. Finally, the camels began to slow their pace. Jack looked back. He couldn't see the caravan at all, and no one seemed to be following them. When the two camels reached the dunes, they began plodding around the steep hills. Once they were nestled safely between tall sand drifts, they stopped to rest. Beauty grunted. Cutie snorted. "Thanks, thanks, girls," said Annie, panting. "I hope Mamoon and the others are safe from the bandits," said Jack. "Me too," said Annie. "What's in the box he gave us?" Jack held up the flat wooden box. "I don't know," he said, "but Mamoon said we should protect it with our lives." "Maybe it's a precious spice," said Annie. "I hope it's more than that," said Jack. "I'd hate to risk my life for cinnamon or pepper." "Should we look?" said Annie. "I don't know," said Jack. "Mamoon might not want us to." "But don't you think we could protect it better if we knew what it was?" said Annie. "Maybe," said Jack. He could see Annie's point. "Well, okay." Jack tried to open the lid of the box, but he couldn't. In the dark, his finger pressed against a keyhole. "Forget it," he said. "It's locked." "Shh! Listen," said Annie. Jack listened. He heard a high-pitched moaning sound. It sounded like music from a violin. Wafting through the dry sand dunes, the haunting music grew louder. "What is that?" asked Jack. "Oh," said Annie. "Now I hear something else." Jack held his breath. He heard hooves galloping over the desert. "The bandits," he said. "We have to hide the box," said Annie. "Yeah, but where?" said Jack. "In the sand," said Annie. She clucked her tongue, and Cutie knelt down to the ground. Cutie knelt down to the ground. Beauty knelt too. Jack and Annie jumped off their saddle cushions and started digging in the sand. The sound of hoofbeats grew louder and louder. Jack and Annie dug frantically. They threw sand behind them like puppies digging in the dirt. "That's deep enough," said Jack. He placed the box in the hole they had dug. Then he and Annie pushed piles of sand back on top of it. When they stood up, Annie gasped. "Look!" A dark figure on a camel was silhouetted against the starlit sky. The rider was winding his way through the dunes toward them. Jack's heart nearly pounded out of his chest. "Should we use a magic rhyme?" Annie asked. "We don't have time," said Jack. The rider drew closer until he stopped in front of Jack and Annie. "You're safe, no?" he said. "Mamoon!" said Annie. Relief flooded through Jack. He laughed. "Yes, we're safe," he said, "and you're safe too." "My men fought well," said Mamoon. "The thieves fled with only a few bags of pepper and painted beads." "And we kept your box safe too," said Annie. She knelt and dug in the sand until she uncovered the wooden box. She handed it to Mamoon. "Ah, very good," the caravan leader said. "What's in the box?" asked Annie. "A priceless treasure," said Mamoon. "I have brought it all the way from Greece, and I am taking it to Baghdad." Thank you both for guarding it with your lives. You are very special." "Sure, no problem," said Jack. He still wondered what was in the box, though. Was it gold? Silver? Maybe precious jewels? But Mahmoud did not say. He put the box back into his camel's saddlebag. "Let us be on our way now," he said. Jack climbed on top of his kneeling camel. He clucked his tongue. He was surprised and pleased when Beauty rose up on her tall legs. "We will catch up with the others in Baghdad," said Mamoun. "If all goes well, we will arrive in the city in the afternoon. We must head east toward the morning sun." Mamoun rode out of the dunes. Jack and Annie followed him. As their camels rocked through the chilly dawn, daylight shimmered over the sand. "Mamoun, last night we heard strange sounds in the dunes," said Annie, "like music playing." "Ah, yes," said Mamoun, "the whistling sands." "What are the whistling sands?" asked Jack. "Some say it's magic," said Mamoun, "but I believe that all things in nature have their reasons. That is why I like the study of science. Science says we must observe our world. We must take experiments and try to find out why things happen. We have learned the whistling is made by sands settling in the drifts." "Oh," said Annie, "I had hoped it was magic." "Learning the reasons for things is magic," said Mamoun. "True knowledge brings light to the world, and that is a magical thing, no?" "Yes," said Jack. Annie nodded thoughtfully. "I guess, when you put it that way," she said. Swaying from side to side on their camels, the three riders traveled toward the dawn. As the sun rose higher in the sky, the desert grew blazing hot. A dry wind whipped through the air, making snaky patterns in the sand. Mamoun halted his camel. He looked around and frowned. "What's wrong?" said Jack. "Are there signs of bandits?" Mamoun shook his head. "No, it is the desert itself that worries me now," he said. "It is restless." He clucked his tongue and his camel began walking again. As they rode over the restless desert, the wind picked up loose sand and tossed it into the air. Jack and Annie lowered their heads to keep the sand from blowing into their eyes. Their headcloths flapped in the wind. More and more sand started blowing. The desert seemed alive as the sand shifted and swirled. Mamoun stopped again and looked about. The snaky patterns in the sand were blowing into round, curly patterns. Jack heard a weird moaning sound. "Is that the whistling sands again?" he asked hopefully. "No," said Mamoun. "That is the cry of a terrible sandstorm, and it will be upon us very soon." That is the end of chapter 5, my friends. I'm enjoying Seasons of the Sandstorms. Are you? I hope you are. I do love Jack and Annie adventures. Bye.